program on sustainable building materials and practices sponsored by APJ Abdul Kalam Technological University. For the second session, we have got an eminent speaker, Engineer Shankar N. Menon, Director, Seed Engineering Consultants and Academy, Cochin. Seed Engineering Consultants are international building services consultants with head office in Dubai and branches at Singapore, Bombay, Bangalore, and Kochi. Seed Academy Kochi is an educational division of Seed Consultants and conduct skill development programs to upgrade the knowledge level of budding engineers designed to bridge the gap between college education and actual construction industry demand. Engineer Shankar N. Menon has graduated his BE degree in mechanical in 1967 from Karnataka University. He is a senior member of SEED Design and Management team with 54 years of professional experience in planning, design, and execution of engineering projects in its mechanical disciplines. He has involved in the design of several multi-million projects, commercial, residential, and industrial in government and private sectors for almost 25 years. He maintains a good relation with Dubai municipality government authorities, which helped to resolve many of the technical design issues in the most practical and cost-effective manner. There are several completed projects in the Gulf countries and in India wherein he has actively involved, and all that facilities are functioning well without any problem, which speaks for his design and construction abilities. To name a few, like Burj Dubai Lake Hotel, Jumeirah Beach Hotel, Burj Al Arab Hotel, first 7-star hotel in the world, Jumeirah Palm Gateway, Dubai Flower Center, etc. More recently, his role has led him to have a more active role in environmentally considerate or green design solutions and in LEED accredited design solutions. He conducts regular classes to engineering students to give them a practical approach to the construction industry. He is also member of Institution of Engineers India, Chartered Engineers India, and Indian Public Association. With this brief introduction, I would like to invite Engineer Shankar N. Menon to deliver his talk on the topic, the importance of sustainability in modern building industry. Sir, please.
Okay, thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to all of you to this presentation. Importance of sustainability in modern building industry. The presentation is focused on sustainable energy efficient design principles related to building industry. This presentation is designed and decorated by my company, Seed Engineering Consultants, with head office in Dubai, branches at Singapore, Bombay, Bangalore, and Kochi. I'm skipping this. I have been already introduced to the audience. Now, the major sustainability aspect on which I'll be focusing my discussion is the reduced demand, efficiency, and recovery. And predominantly, it will be dealing with the efficiency part, which plays an important role in sustainability aspects. Modern building industry. In modern building industry, technology is advancing in a unique direction of convergence of all the three major disciplines of the building industry, namely the civil engineering, the mechanical engineering, and the electrical engineering. All the three disciplines are interwoven for the evolution of the modern, sustainable, energy efficient building. So an engineer shall be a master of his discipline, but he shall be equally aware of the requirements of other disciplines also. A modern building is a product of all the three disciplines, namely civil, mechanical, and electrical engineering, supporting and complementing each other. They have to work as a team for a win-win situation of all the parties involved. As the civilization evolved, human demands increased. From that time onwards, human race started exploiting the nature mercilessly. Hills and mountains, hills and mountains were shattered to pieces for construction materials. More and more trees were mercilessly cut for construction and the forest starts disappearing. Massive industrialization polluted the air. Industrial waste polluted the water. Excessive use of chemicals and fertilizers polluted vegetables and cultivation. If this trend continues at the present rate, we are going to face a very dangerous situation. Even the human life may get wiped off from the face of the earth. Today, politicians, scientists, engineers, and the common men are aware of the dangerous results of abuse of nature. So, 15 to 20-year-old design methodology is not adequate for the modern world. I repeat that sentence. 15 to 20 years old design methodology is not adequate for the modern world. Today we need sustainable energy efficient design, meaning more comfort at less energy spent. Even today, coal, oil and gas, and the nuclear fuel are the major sources of energy. Coal, oil and gas, and nuclear fuel are extracted from the earth. As you are extracting more and more, their quantity is getting depleted. Their levels goes down. At some stage, they will disappear from the earth. So coal, oil and gas, and nuclear fuels are not sustainable energy source. A sustainable energy source shall not get depleted even if they are extracted and continuously used. All of us knows that sun is a sustainable energy source. In fact, the very day earth came into existence, from that day onwards, sun is giving us a definite amount of energy every day, irrespective of whether we need it or not. It is up to us to understand the technology to economically harvest solar energy. Then it will be adequate to meet our energy requirement for the time being and the requirements for generations and generations to come. So solar energy is going to play a very important role in our daily life. Another sustainable energy source is the wind energy. Wind is a sustainable energy source. You can generate electricity by using wind turbines. Tide is another source. Tide is a sustainable energy source. You can generate electricity by using tidal turbines. Now, we will see, now we will analyze what contribution can civil engineers, mechanical engineers, and electrical engineers can together contribute for a sustainable energy efficient building. Today, if you look at it, the majority of power consumption or energy demand is due to air conditioning, because in the modern world, almost all the buildings are getting air conditioned. So because of that reason, I have shown a picture of a room in this slide, which is to be air conditioned. Then the question comes, why should we air condition this room? Because solar energy, sun's energy, by the normal process of conduction, convection, and radiation is transmitted into the room. Thereby, its temperature is elevated to a high level, represented here by the letter TH, which is temperature high. This is not temperature high, and this is not comfortable for the human beings occupying that particular room. So we had to somehow bring it down to TC, which is normally considered as 23 plus or minus 2 degrees centigrade, which is termed as temperature comfortable. How do you do that? We are doing that by throwing a portion of the heat energy to the external atmosphere. See, this is a funny procedure. This is a paradoxical concept, a design not in the proper way, because we are first admitting heat energy to come into the building, and thereafter you are using an air conditioner, you are spending money from your pocket, and you are throwing a portion of that heat energy to the same place where from it has come in. It would have been far better had we prevented heat gain into the building at the first stage itself by preventing it to come into the room. So that should be our approach. How will we do that? We had to go for improved design with better quality construction materials and proper orientation of the building. If you go for building materials of low thermal conductivity and glass, either double glazing or triple glazing, meaning 2 glasses with an air gap or 3 glasses with an air gap, what happens is heat gain into the building is reduced. Then the high temperature TH at high level, which I showed in the previous slide, automatically comes down to TH at low level without spending any money from your pocket. Saving is due to better construction material and proper orientation of the building. So temperature from high level come to temperature high at low level. Thereafter, you need spend only less amount of energy to be thrown out to the building. So compared to the conventional system, what we are following even today, if you follow improved design with better quality construction material and proper orientation, a considerable part of the heat energy is automatically avoided. I do agree that there is going to be a cost increase in the construction, but this cost increase can be recouped within a period of 2 to 3 years. Thereafter, you are going to save money every day. So let us try to see what is meant by proper orientation of the building. So orient your building to use sun to your advantage, meaning the ideal house solar orientation for passive solar benefit is that the main long axis of the building runs in the east-west direction. So if you look at a building, it has got a long face. The axis parallel to the long face is the long axis. It has got a short face. The axis which is parallel to the short face is the short axis. Okay. Sun is high in the sky during summer. High is low in the sky during winter. So if you orient your building in the east-west direction, what happens is early morning time, the sun is heating only the shorter face. Afternoon time, it heats the roof. Evening time, again, it is heating the shorter face. Thereby, you are minimizing heat gain into the building. The importance of that you will understand when you look at the modern buildings. If you look at the modern tower building, you can find out that the vertical face, the area of the vertical face is much larger than the footprint of the building. The roof of the building is very small compared to the vertical face of the building. So if you orient this building in the east-west direction, sun is going to heat all the floors during the morning hours. Afternoon, it is going to heat the roof, but the impact is limited only to the top floor. The other floors are not going to get affected much. Evening, it is going to heat the smaller face, smaller vertical face. Thereby, you are minimizing heat gain into the building. Now, you just imagine that I turn this building by 90 degrees in such a way that the building is oriented. The building is oriented in such a way that the short axis is facing the east-west direction. then sun is going to heat the larger face majority of the time. Afternoon time there is no much difference because it is heating the room. Evening time also it is going to heat all the room. So the quantity of heat that is transmitted to the room is increased considerably. So the ideal situation is to orient it in such a way that the long axis is in the east-west direction. A correctly oriented building can save a lot of money since no longer required heating and cooling cost expenditure. In effect, the building itself maintains a comfortable environment for you with little additional cost. By simply building in this way, a house can reduce its heating and cooling costs by 85%. Now you are moving in the correct direction of energy efficient design. See, this is a building constructed by AAC blocks, autoclaved aerated concrete blocks. Blockwork with low thermal conductivity AAC block helps to reduce heat gain into the building. When we reduces heat gain into the building, your air conditioning load is reduced. Consequently, your electricity bill also comes down. Okay. Now, using such materials, low thermal conductivity material is a correct move in the direction of energy efficient design. Just to give you a comparison, AAC block, clay bricks, fly ash, solid concrete blocks, hollow concrete block, CLC lightweight blocks, you will see thermal insulation. Thermal insulation is the factor what we should look at to prevent heat gain into the building. It is very good for AAC block, average for other blocks, good for other blocks, but very good is attributed to AAC block. Parallelly, you should look into the quietness of the building also. Noise insulation, that also is very good for AAC block. So choosing such materials will add to the efficiency of performance of your building. Now, this is what is known as vertical gardening. Whatever may be the shape of the building, you can provide vertical gardening. It adds beauty to the building. Okay, it prevents shade to the walls, thereby minimizes heat gain into the building. It provides noise insulation. Apart from that, the such vertical forest is clearing the atmosphere by absorbing carbon dioxide and giving out oxygen. So it is a multi-purposes is served by providing vertical gardening. So our architect should look for vertical gardening wherever it is possible. Now let me show you a video on this particular subject.
Nanjing, China is getting a vertical forest. Trying to keep the air clean is not an easy task in cities. Plants are a great natural way to filter out the air, but when land is scarce, there's only one way to go, and that's up. Two buildings will be constructed in Nanjing, China. They will feature around 1,100 trees and 2,500 shrubs and plants. This vertical forest will produce approximately 130 pounds of clean oxygen per day and absorb 25 tons of CO2 per year. The project should be completed in 2018. The Nanjing Vertical Forest will be the third such structure built. The other two are in Milan, Italy, and in Lausanne, Switzerland. The one in Milan was completed in 2014 and is used for residential purposes. The plant life serves to clean the air, help with temperature control, and lessen noise. In Nanjing, one building will serve as a hotel. The other will house a museum, offices, and an architecture school. All of these vertical forests are designed by Stefano Boeri Architects. The firm says it will develop similar projects in other Chinese cities, including Shanghai. For more information, check out cnet.com. I'm Ayaz Akhtar, and I'll see you online.
Similarly, if you whether the voice, the video was clear, can I have a feedback?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. See, you can go for roof gardens like this. Terrace gardening, which minimizes heat gain through the building. Go for, this is single glass, double glazing and triple glazing. Double glazing means two glasses with air in between. Triple glazing three glasses with air in between. If you provide these glazing, what happens is majority of the heat is reflected back. Only a little amount of heat is coming in. And if it is a cold country, you are actually heating inside, so the heat is not going to lose to the external atmosphere. So once you air condition this one, you will minimize loss of coldness by providing this double glazing. You have modern buildings completely with building envelope with double glazing, because you cannot use this building with single glazing, because the indoor condition will be very hot. So you can go for double glazing. Just to give a comparison between the U values, even here in watts per meter square per degree Kelvin. If it is single, for the glazing only 5.7, for a double 2.8, for a double with low emissivity it is 1.8, for triple it is 1.8. If it is for window with frame, single is 5, double is 3, double with low emissivity is 2.2, triple is 2.2. You can see how much of heat gain into the building can be minimized by using better construction materials. You can go for good quality insulating materials are now available in the market. You can go for roof insulation. You can go for wall insulation. You can go for floor insulation. If you do that, you can minimize heat gain into the building. If the building is already air conditioned, loss of coolness also can be minimized. These are secondary roofs. This is very common in our areas. We do that to prevent rainwater coming into the roof and leaking through the cracks on the roof. Okay, but it has got another purpose. By providing secondary roofs like that, you can avoid direct heating of the RCC roof slab. Thereby, you minimize heat gain into the building. So these are a correct move in the direction of energy efficient design. It need not be metallic or metal. It can be fabric also. If you provide fabric, it adds to the beauty of the building. But the purpose is the same. Secondary roof with fabric materials provide shades to the roof to minimize heat gain through roof into the building. So that's a correct move in the direction of energy efficient design. You can spray white paint onto the roof. Okay, a cool roof is one that has been designed to reflect more sunlight and absorb less heat than a standard roof. Standard or dark roof can reach temperature up to 100 degrees Fahrenheit or more in summer sun. A cool roof under the same condition could stay more or less 50 degrees cooler and save energy and money by using less air conditioning. Okay, so far I explained to you what contribution a civil engineer, an architect, a landscape architect can provide to minimize energy consumption. Now let us see what are this is another one, of course. This also by the civil engineers. Offices designed to maximize the use of daylight. So you can see the building. See, the building is highly illuminated by the sunlight itself. See the conference room, you can see the workstation, you can see. So there is no need for light. No need for light. If you go for a combination, of lux sensor, a combination of lux sensor and dimming system automatically adjust the light intensity inside the office and thus results in energy saving. So if it is a sunny day, there is enough light inside the office, and automatically by lux sensor and the dimming system, the lamp is off. If it's a partially clouded day, because of the lux sensor and the dimming system, it will automatically, the lamp provides dim light adequate to maintain the desired lux level. Okay. Now, if it is cloudy day, there is no sufficient light at all in the office, then the combination of lux sensor and dimming light will provide a bright light. So the bulb, the light is made to perform under a dimming condition or full bright condition according to the requirement of your workstation. So that is a saving in electricity towards lighting cost. Now, what is meant by energy recovery wheels? See, we are talking about air conditioning. When you talk about normal air conditioning system, the cold air is again and again recirculated through the air conditioning equipment. What happens? Every time the cold air comes into the room, it absorbs heat from the human body. It absorbs heat from the equipments inside that room. It absorbs heat from the lighting load. It also absorbs moisture from your body. And when it goes back to the air conditioning unit, it gets cooled. When it gets cooled on one side. When it gets cooled, the moisture which has been absorbed is become water droplets and comes out as condensate rain, and it is again circulated through the room. But one thing what is not controlled by the air conditioning system is the presence of carbon dioxide. Every time you breathe out, you are giving out carbon dioxide. So all the occupants are breathing out carbon dioxide. So slowly the carbon dioxide level goes up. There is no air conditioning arrangement inside the air conditioner to get rid of this carbon dioxide. So what happens? Even though the room is very cold, the freshness of indoor air is lost. See, when you will feel uncomfortable even though the environment is cold. Sometimes you will feel the air to be stuffy. Sometimes some bad odor is felt. Often we feel this experience when we go to some hotels. The hotel is cold, but the air is not fresh. This is because of inadequate ventilation. So what we had to do is we take out a portion of the cooled air and throw it to the external atmosphere and admit an equivalent amount of fresh air along with oxygen into the room. The presence of oxygen will upgrade the indoor air quality, which is comfortable for the human beings. But the disadvantage is that what you throw out is cold air. To cool that air, you have spent money from your pocket. You cannot just throw that money to the external atmosphere. So whether you have, if you can recover that coldness from the exhaust air and transmit it to the warm fresh air which is coming from outside, you are taking advantage of the 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 energy which is recovered from the cold air. This is achieved through an apparatus known as energy recovery wheels for the HVAC system. Heat energy which could have lost through exhaust air will be used to pre-cool the fresh outdoor air by the use of energy recovery wheels. Okay. Use of energy recovery wheels reduces the load on the air conditioning system. So that's the correct move in the energy efficient design. So as from the civil engineering discipline, you should be, or your engineer should be in a position to question the mechanical engineer if you don't find an energy recovery wheels in his design. So at least the basic knowledge of such techniques should be available to all disciplines, whether it is civil, whether it is mechanical, or whether it is electrical, because the combined effect of all the three disciplines alone can produce a sustainable energy efficient building. In fact, it shall not be limited to the engineering people only. It has to be spread among the common public. Without the cooperation of the common public, we will not achieve anything. Okay, now let us see what is happening. See, from the room, the cooled exhaust air is driven out to the external atmosphere, and fresh, warm or hot, fresh air is admitted into the building. During that process, the coldness goes to the other side and your fresh air is getting cold. Since the coldness is transmitted, heat is absorbed from here and exhaust air becomes warm and discharged the external atmosphere. I'll be showing two videos on this particular subject, but there the videos are regarding heating air conditioning because these videos are from European countries. So predominantly it is heating air conditioning. So what you see will be relevant to heating air conditioning, but the principle is the same.
In an office space, a large amount of fresh air is needed to maintain air quality. Traditionally, fresh air is provided by opening windows or by mechanical ventilation systems that blow fresh air into the building. During cold weather, this air has to be heated, which can account for up to 80% of the total building's heat requirement when an office is occupied. At the same time as the cold incoming air is heated, the warm exhaust air from the building is dumped. Heat recovery ventilation is a method of transferring energy or heat from waste air to the cold incoming air without compromising the quality of the fresh air. The heat recovery system works by closing the office windows during cold weather and delivering air through a special wheel called a thermal wheel. This wheel contains lots of very small metal airways that absorb energy or heat from the outgoing air. As the wheel spins, it transfers heat from the expelled air to warm up the cold incoming air. This saves energy and offers warm, fresh air.
This is a silent video. I will explain to you. You can see thousands and thousands of air passages. The wheel is rotating between two streams of air. One is hot, the other is cold. So when it is passing through the cold air, the wheel itself becomes cold. So it goes from here. When it comes here, here the wheel is cold, here is hot. So as the wheel rotates, hot air gets cold, cold air gets hot. So this is basically the principle of heat recovery wheel. See, heat recovery wheel is installed inside an air handling unit and it is revolving between the two streams of air. One is cold, the other is hot. Now let us see what is meant by chiller mate. Let us see what is meant by waste heat recovery from the chiller unit. Let us imagine a 50-story building, and this building has to be air conditioned. What are we normally doing it? We are capturing the heat from the building and we are throwing into the external atmosphere. We capture heat from the building by spending money from your pocket, and if you throw it out, your money is lost. Imagine a condition, you instead of throwing that heat out, you are going to utilize that heat to generate hot water for the same building. Then you are moving in the correct direction of energy efficient design, because what heat is recovered from the building or what is removed from the building, you are not throwing it to the external atmosphere and making the external atmosphere more warmer. Instead of that, you are going to economically use it to generate hot water for hot water supply within that particular building. So chiller mate is a clean technology which recover waste heat from the chiller unit and provide hot air at almost no cost. Let me see a video on this.
ChillerMate Waste Heat Recovery Solutions by Promethean Energy. Energy efficiency is a great way to cut down your energy cost while making the world a greener place. One great area of recovering energy is chillers. A chiller typically uses 1 unit of electricity to generate 3 to 5 units of cooling and dumps 3 to 6 units of cooling into the environment. This waste heat comprises 50% of the total energy in the refrigeration cycle. ChillerMate is an innovative waste heat recovery solution which captures a good part of this waste heat and converts it into hot water at zero cost. So, how does it work? If you look carefully at the refrigeration system, in every cycle, the compressor is generating hot refrigerant at high pressure, and the condenser is rejecting this heat every single cycle. ChillerMate is a unique patented heat recovery system which sits between the compressor and condenser and recovers this wasted heat and converts it to hot water. So you both cool down the refrigerant while generating zero-cost hot water at the same time. This hot water can be used in other processes and can offset your fuel usage significantly, generating savings. The system has a lot of benefits. With extremely rapid paybacks, you can expect to recover the capital cost in less than 2 years typically. Improves chiller performance with up to 15% reduction in power consumption. Lowers costs of operation, including lower cooling tower costs, water treatment costs, pumping costs. Further, by reducing your fuel consumption, a 100-ton system can offset your carbon footprint by up to 150 tons per year. It is applicable to a wide variety of food industries like dairies, pharma, food processing, textiles, and most industries which simultaneously use chillers and boilers. Apart from just the physical product, the ChillerMate system comes with integrated data monitoring units so that you are aware of how the system is performing in real time and have a close tab on exactly how much savings are being generated.
So that is about heat recovery from the chiller unit. Now we are going to understand what is meant by a chilled beam. Chilled beam system of air conditioning. A chilled beam is nothing but a cooling coil similar to the radiator of a car, but slightly bigger in size. The hot water in the room raises to the top, and when it passes through the cooling coil, it gets cooled, and cold air comes down, hot air goes up, again passes through the cooling coil, so that air is cooled by a process of natural convection, so that it is known as a passive chilled beam. The disadvantage of the passive chilled beam is that there is no provision for fresh air intake. So the only way is some fresh air may come in when you open the window or somebody opens the door. Since this is a natural convection process, it is known as a passive chill beam. But this disadvantage of not having fresh air is compensated in an improved version. By an improved version known as forced convection process, where you have a fan here which sucks air from the external atmosphere, and it is supplied to this area through the plenum. Your hot air comes, passes through the chilled coil, gets it cooled, mixed with the fresh air which is coming in, and then is pushed down. See, it is pushed down because the fan is pushing the air down. So the air is pushed down to the room. So it is a forced convection. So you call it as an active chilled beam. Okay. So how does an active chilled beam work? You can see the air absorbs heat from the room and it becomes hotter and hotter, goes through the chill beam, mixed with the fresh air, cold air is coming out, and again it passes that way. Okay, in both the direction, and the process is continued. So chilled beam is an economical way of air conditioning system. How? Because in a normal air conditioning system, chilled water temperature has to be cooled by the chiller in the range 4 degree to 7 degrees centigrade. But chilled water in a chilled beam need be cooled only to 16 degree to 90 degrees centigrade. So that you need cool the chilled water only to a higher level. I mean, you need not cool it down to 4 to 7 degree. You need cool it to 16 to 90 degrees centigrade. So thus there is a reduction in chiller load and a consequent saving in the energy. So this is an example of energy efficient design. Now, what is meant by thermal ice storage? Thermal ice storage. See, in some countries, you have a varying tariff for the electricity bill. If you consume power from the grid, power grid, during peak load condition, hello,
Vivek,
എന്തെങ്കിലും പറയുന്നുണ്ടോ? കേട്ടില്ല.
Vivek, Malavika.
കാണുന്നില്ല.
No, sir.
Okay,
കാണുന്നില്ല.
Sir, you can continue. Participants, please mute.
കാണുന്നില്ലേ?
കാണാം sir. Clear ആണ്.
വോയിസ് കാണുന്നില്ല. വോയിസ് കേൾക്കുന്നില്ലേ?
കേൾക്കാം. എല്ലാം okay.
Okay. So see, something is blocking in my computer so that on the title I am unable to read. This is basically regarding thermal storage. So thermal storage air conditioning system. So the thing is, in some part of the world, you are having a varying tariff. That means if you consume power during peak load hours, you have to pay more. When is the peak load? Obviously during the daytime. During the daytime, the sun is present to heat the building. So your air conditioning cost is going up. All the offices are operational. By about 3 p.m. or 4 p.m., all the building material which has absorbed heat from the sun will start giving it out. So that the peak load condition, you will feel that your room is very hot during 3 to 4 p.m. time. So these are the peak hours. So if during the peak hours, you need more chilled water to have an effective cooling. So if you drop power from the grid during that time, you will pay more. On the contrary, during night, sun is not present. Most of the offices are closed. So the electricity demand is less. When your electricity demand is less, you are charged less. Take advantage of the lower tariff and produce ice the previous day. Ice produced during the previous night is used for cooling the building. Cooling the building means for cooling the chilled water during the peak hours. In normal condition, your demand may go up something like 1400 kilowatt. But if you use the stored cooling in ice, it will come down to 800. That means there is a saving of 600 kilowatt reduction. So this is an economically efficient design. I'm not saying it is an energy efficient design because energy is already used to produce the ice. So there is no saving in energy, but you are producing the ice at a lower cost. So economically you are saved. So it is an economically efficient design. So let us see a video on this particular subject.
Have you ever thrown a party? You wouldn't wait to make ice for the party till people started walking through the door, would you? Of course not. That'd be ridiculous. Want to hear something 100 times crazier? You only need about 1 pound of ice per person at a party, but to keep that same person cool in their office the following day, it takes the equivalent of 150 to 300 pounds of ice. So if it's ludicrous not to plan ahead for your party, why is it the standard practice to wait until people show up to create the cooling in buildings? Especially since the cost of electricity is 2 to 3 times more expensive during hot summer days for commercial buildings. Think of it this way. If gas was $1.29 after sunset and $3.29 the next morning, when would you fill up? So get your electricity at night with the IceBank energy storage system from CalMac. IceBank allows you to create and store your building's cooling needs by making ice at night, when electric rates are substantially lower. The next day, the ice is used to cool the building, minimizing your power usage during the electric grid's most congested and expensive hours. It's like buying your ice before the party, only 100 times smarter. Storing cooling ahead of when you need it not only reduces energy costs, but can even generate income through what's called demand response. When the grid is overtaxed during the hottest periods of the day, some grid operators will actually pay you to reduce power usage during the day. That's like the grocer paying you to take the ice before the party. You can even feel great about ice storage because at night you can store renewable wind energy from the grid. Have solar? Stored cooling from Ice Bank can kick in when the sun's not shining. So now you're not only rolling in the green, you're being green too. And it's not just for new buildings. Ice Bank works with existing buildings as well. So ask yourself, are you interested in reducing your cooling costs without affecting occupant comfort, planning a more sustainable building, and becoming a green champion? If the answer is yes, start here.
So that is about ice banks. So by ice banks, that is thermal ice storage produced during night, one can reduce peak load during peak energy demand and thus make savings in the electricity bills. So this is an example of economically efficient design. Now this is geothermal air conditioning. If you go below Earth, the subsurface temperature of the Earth is always constant between 50°F to 55°F. Your Mother Earth is a great heat sink. Where from this heat has come? That is from the sun. The sun's heat is absorbed by the Earth, and always it is a constant temperature. There is no much difference to this temperature during winter and summer. They are almost constant in this particular range. Any amount of heat energy you supply to the Mother Earth, it will absorb it without having much difference in its temperature, normal temperature, within the range of 50°F to 55°F. In a normal air conditioning system, what we do is, by using an air conditioning system, we throw heat from within the room to the external atmosphere. So during peak summer days, your external atmosphere is very hot. So on the peak days, the external atmosphere being very hot, the atmosphere is unwilling to accept heat from the building. So you will feel that your air conditioning is not functioning satisfactorily when it is required to function with the maximum efficiency. Okay, this is a very common defect when we are using window ACs. So the external atmosphere being already hot, it is unwilling to accept more heat, so the heat transmission is affected. But think that you are diverting that heat to the ground. The ground is at a lower temperature and it is readily acceptable. So when you go for a geothermal air conditioning, its efficiency is very high. Now similarly, in cold countries, if you want to heat the building during winter, you can remove heat from the ground to the room. The advantage is heat is already present underground. You need not generate heat by burning fuels. So there is a saving by that in that way. The heat is already available because the sun's heat is stored there. So the only cost what you are incurring now is only the transportation cost to transmit it from underground to your room. So what you do normally is a pump, and a coolant liquid is circulated and then air is blown through it, and in that way the heat is transmitted into it. So this is an example of geothermal air conditioning. Let us see a video on this particular subject.
What if there was an abundant source of free, renewable energy that could be used to heat a house in the winter, cool it in the summer, and provide hot water all year round? Well, a growing number of homeowners say there is, and it's powered by the sun. While you may be picturing solar panels, these homeowners are actually talking about geothermal. If you're a typical homeowner, almost 2/3 of your total energy bill is for heating, cooling, and hot water. The rest is for lighting, appliances, and other usage. That means the biggest opportunity to save money on your energy bill is to increase the efficiency of your heating, cooling, and hot water system. A geothermal heat pump taps into the renewable solar energy stored in the ground. to provide savings of up to 70% on utility bills. Although it operates similarly to a standard heat pump, a geothermal heat pump exchanges heat with the earth instead of the outdoor air. Outdoor air temperatures can vary greatly from day to night or from winter to summer, while the temperature just a few feet below the Earth's surface stays an average 55 degrees to 70 degrees Fahrenheit year-round. To see why that's so important, let's look at traditional conditioning systems. In order to cool your home, an ordinary system collects indoor heat and expels it outside. Unfortunately, summer temperatures can easily hit 90 or 100 degrees, which means outdoor air already is filled with heat and is less willing to accept more. The exchange process becomes harder and harder. The result is that an ordinary heat pump or air conditioner becomes least efficient at exactly the time you need it to be the most efficient. A geothermal unit never sees hot summer air. It collects heat from your home and moves it to the much cooler 55-degree Earth. It doesn't matter how much outdoor conditions fluctuate, the ground remains relatively constant. Thanks to the constant temperature of the Earth, a geothermal heat pump is more than twice as efficient at cooling than any regular heat pump or air conditioner. To warm your home, an ordinary heat pump reverses to collect outdoor heat from the air and move it indoors. Unfortunately, as winter temperatures drop, there's less and less available heat to collect. Again, the exchange process becomes harder, and the heat pump becomes least efficient at exactly the time you need it to be the most efficient. A geothermal unit never sees cold winter air. It draws from a reservoir of much warmer 55-degree temperatures, concentrates it, and moves it to your home. And unlike a traditional furnace, which returns less than 96 cents of heat for each dollar spent burning expensive, polluting fossil fuel, a geothermal heat pump returns up to $5 of heat for each dollar spent on electricity. That's because, unlike a furnace, a geothermal heat pump doesn't create heat through combustion. It simply collects and moves it. Now that you know the benefits of using the Earth, let's look at how it's accomplished. A geothermal system,
So in a geothermal air conditioning system, heat from within the building is thrown to the earth via a heat pump. Temperature 5 feet below the ground level is almost constant between 50 degree Fahrenheit to 55 degree Fahrenheit during summer and winter. So Mother Earth acts as a potential heat sink, which can be economically used to heat and cool the building without affecting the subsurface temperature of the earth. So far we saw what civil engineers can do, what mechanical engineers can do. Now I am passing on to the electrical side. Okay, now instead of electrical water heaters, you can go for solar water heaters. You can go for solar panels to meet your electricity demand. If you are producing more power, KSEB is ready to purchase it from you. So all of us know that our Nedumbasheri airport requirements are predominantly met by solar panels. So these are the solar panels what is arranged in Nedumbasheri, and they are doing some cultivation also in between. So I'm skipping all those portions for want of time. See, this is the arrangement of the panels and the plants in between. Okay. So now, see, you can actually arrange solar panels like this on roundabouts. You can arrange it by the side of express highways. You can even have a road like this. The world's first solar panel road opens in France. Just imagine a situation that in future all our roads are going to be solar panel. That could be a revolution. Okay, see, Delhi Metro will be installing solar panels roof on pedestrian overbridges to generate clean and cheaper energy to use for the station. This is an ideal method which can be adopted by our Kochi Metro also. See, world's largest solar bridge in London All of them are solar panels. So solar panels has got a very important part to play in energy efficient design principle. Now I am going to talk to you about variable frequency drive. So motor is a important component in human life. Motors are generally connected to pumps or to fans of an air conditioning system. It is not necessary that the motor should always run at a constant speed. If we can vary the speed of the motor by using a variable frequency drive, what happens? See an example. A 240 HP motor, when running at half the speed through a variable frequency drive, consumes only 1/8 of the power. That means when it is running at 50% speed, instead of 240 motor, it is acting like a 30 HP motor. So a centrifugal pump or a fan running at half speed consumes only 1/8 of the energy compared to the one running at full speed. So that is an example of energy efficient design. Let us see a video on this subject.
If you're in business, you're paying to power motors, whether to supply ventilation, run pumps or industrial equipment, or even just to heat and cool your space. Many motors run at a constant speed, and they don't have to. This wastes energy and wears out your equipment faster. A variable frequency drive, or VFD, slows down a motor, decreasing overall energy usage and reducing wear and tear on the motor without sacrifice to comfort or performance. A simple 25% decrease in motor speed can save up to 50% in energy costs. There are many places that VFDs can save you energy. Primarily, VFDs are attached to motor-driven fans and pumps. This could include air handlers, exhaust fans, rooftop HVAC units, and more. When it comes to pump systems, hot water pumps, process pumps, and chilled water pumps are common places you may find to be suitable applications for your facilities. Between energy savings and new rebates from Efficiency Vermont, a VFD can pay for itself in less than 2 years, while also extending the life of your equipment and lowering your maintenance costs through less wear and tear. More and more businesses are discovering the power of using VFDs in their workspace.
So that is about VFD. Now, Star appliances, energy efficient appliances and their benefits. Leading brands have invested in producing energy efficient appliances. These appliances include refrigerators, air conditioners, water heaters, lighters, dishwashers, cloth washing machine, dryers, and other electrical items used at home and at workplaces. These star rate appliances consumes less energy. See, power factor correction. Power factor correction. Power factor correction is normally achieved through capacitor banks installed within the main panel boards or sub-panel boards or dedicated panel board for a particular equipment, example, motor control panel. So an installation without power factor correction is not recommended because you are going to have increased power cost. Your electricity bill will go up. But if you go for a power factor correction, installation with power factor correction is acceptable because your electricity cost is going down. There is going to be a saving. So now I have completed the electrical part. Now let me discuss something about the public health engineering part. In our normal buildings, normally we have wash basins, showers, bathtub, kitchen sink, dishwasher, and cloth washer. We supply water to all these appliances, and after use, they produce wastewater. This wastewater is normally known as grey water. Other appliances are your WC, urinal, and bidet. We supply water for flushing purposes. When it comes out, that water, that wastewater contains human waste, which is more contaminated than the grey water. So we call it as black water. To understand the economics of this concept. Let us assume an apartment having 5 members. See, as per National Building Code of India, the water consumption per day per person can be as high as 200 liters. For 5 people, it works out to 1,000 people. Out of 1,000 liters used every day, 30% of fresh water, namely 300 liters, are used for flushing the toilets. And the 700 liters are used for the other purposes. And both put together, 700 plus 300 is going either to a septic tank or to a sewage treatment plant. Now imagine that instead of using the fresh water, you are growing the less contaminated grey water, 700 liters. From that 700 liters, 300 liters, you are going through a simple filtration and disinfection process, and then you are going to use it for flushing the toilets, the urinals, and the bidet. So now you have completed your grey water cycle, and you are using that water for your black water cycle, and then it is going to the sewage treatment plant, where treated sewage effluent is used for irrigation purpose or for cooling tower makeup, and in some cases even for flushing the toilet. The slurry produced by the sewage treatment plant is a good manure which can be used for agriculture. So what is happening now? You are saving 300 liters of fresh water every day per apartment. Now just imagine about the Indian subcontinent as a whole. You can think, if all the buildings adopt this technique, you can understand what is the enormous quantity of water that can be saved every day. That means now we are thinking about preservation of the natural resources. Every bit we have to say is Paradulli Perivala. That is the concept, what we should follow. See, you can go for special appliances, dual capacity flush tank. This is now common in our area. What we see is not a lever, what we are having buttons. So you have a smaller button and a larger button. If you press smaller button, less amount of water is discharged. So after urination, you can press the smaller button. After the regular use of WC, you press the larger button. The full tank is emptied, flushing the toilets. So by doing this, you can save 35% of your water used. Now, you can go for low flow faucet and sensor control. Low flow faucet means the tip of the filter is specially designed so that the water is atomized. So what you get is a form of water, and you will feel the abundance. Apart from that, it will come out only by virtue of a sensor control. It will sense the presence in your hand, and then only it will discharge. Okay. You still feel the feeling of abundance is there since it is atomized. So by using low flow faucet and sensor control, this reduces water usage by 40 to 70% that conventional forces. So this can be used for, proposed for common areas, public areas actually. Now let me show you a video on this subject.
This is altered nozzle, a beautiful new type of aerator that fits into your existing tap. By atomizing water and creating a mist, you can do exactly the same things you do today, only with 98% less water. This is what happens with your regular faucet. Most of the water either bounces off your skin or just passes your hands without touching them at all. That's millions of gallons of water, literally slipping through our fingers and down the drain. We need to change that, and that's why we want your help.
So how do we save 98% of the water without losing functionality? The trick is in atomization. You break up the water into millions of droplets, and basically you're creating a heavy mist. In our mist, you get in contact with much a greater percentage of the water, almost all of it. That's why you can wash your hands, do your dishes with just a fraction of the water coming out of your tap. But sometimes you need more water. That's why we developed the switch. In switch mode,
You still save 85% of the water compared to your regular tap, but you still get all the water you need.
So
Okay.
that is the special design of low flow faucets. Different mix of low flow faucets are available in the market. Now regarding rainwater harvesting. Rainwater falling on the roof of the building can be collected, can be filtered and reused. This is the principle of, of rainwater harvesting. Now let us see how can we maximize the use of rainwater harvesting, because by municipality regulation, every building have a definite size of rainwater harvesting tank. But this tank will get filled up within no time. So we should have some methodology to regularly use, to maximize the use of rainwater during monsoon. How can we do that? See, this is a typical, what you say, typical water tank, underground water tank. And that is your normal operating level. And you are taking water from a source. Here in the picture I have shown you a well. It could be even your municipality water. Okay. So normally your water requirement is in this range during summer, during summer, you know. And what you have done is you have allowed a space above, a free space to receive rainwater during monsoon. So how does that work? When water level is here, your flow to valve is closed. This is not a normal flow to valve. This is a differential flow to valve. What means is the actuation of the lever is through a rod. And this float is actually sliding on the rod. And it has got a top stopper and a bottom stopper. So the valve remains closed. And as the water consumed, the level goes down. The float also will move down up to the stopper. Thereafter, when the water level goes down, along with the float, the lever is pulled. The lever is pulled and the valve opens. Then the valve opens. When the valve opens, the pressure in the system falls down. It is sensed by the pressure switch. It gives signal to the control panel and the pump starts. Water comes in, water fills up. When it reaches at this place, the float moving up at this stopper pushes the rod, valve stops, pump is running. So pressure buildup sensed by the pressure switches signals to the control panel and the pump stops. So this process is continuing in the normal sunny days. During monsoon, from the roof of the building through a filter, rainwater is coming in and that fills this annular space. So since it is above the normal operating level, your pump is remaining closed because your flow valve, differential flow valve is remaining closed. Okay, so now you are consuming water. Water level will start going down from here. The pump will start only when the water level reaches at this particular point. By that time, fresh rainwater will be coming in and it will be going on. The process will be continuing. Imagine that 1 or 2 days there are no rain. So what happens? There is no filling of this particular portion. So the water level goes down. It reaches here, it pulls it back, and then the pressure falls down. The pump starts, well water come in, and it comes to the normal operating high level and stop that, waiting for the next rain to come. So during monsoon, there will be several instances where your underground storage tank is full of rainwater. Thereby, you are maximizing the use of rainwater.
Basically,
I'm skipping those because we may not get time to cover all the topics, you know. So now I am going to talk about the surface rainwater. What happens? Because the rainwater harvesting is normally done, rainwater which is falling on the terrace because they are less contaminated. When it reaches the ground, it gets terribly contaminated. Then use of that water will be very costly because the refining process become costlier because we will be using several chemical fertilizers and all for growing the plants for growing the grass, etc., etc. So normal percolation process, it has to pass through the bed of sand and finally it reaches the groundwater level. So during earlier days, all of us had, where all of it has ponds in our properties, minimum one pond in every plot, and these ponds were acting as rainwater collectors. So during rainy season, the water level goes up, and during those days, my younger days, I had never experienced flooding of roads. Now what happens? All the ponds are closed. Building has come in. There is no way for percolation, and the roads are getting flooded. So everybody should think of putting some recharge pits in their properties. Recharge pits could be of diameter 1.5 meter, and on the top you have got grating, so that space wise it is not going to affect rain. At the center of the recharge bit, you have got a perforated pipe driven all the way down adjacent to the groundwater level. Here it is slightly above the groundwater level, because otherwise the impurities from the surface will be directly transported through the groundwater, and in that process the groundwater will get polluted. To avoid that, we should allow some gap for as a filtration bed by the earth. Now in this picture it is 2 meter what has been shown, but as per the National Building Code of India 2016 guideline, we should have at least 5 meter. But however, the principle wise, the recharge bit with its central perforator road is providing a bypass or a shortcut to reach the water nearer to the groundwater. So water is actually discharged sidewise throughout the water bed continuously, and it is accelerating the percolation process. So recharge bits provides a shortcut for percolation and thus accelerate the process of recharging to thirst quenching of the mother earth. So this is an example of energy efficient design. Now, you, instead of going for asphalted car park and concreted car park, you can think about green car parks like this, okay, with soft landscaped car park. You can think of demarcation lines by different types of colored plants and flowers. So the problem here is when all the vehicles start moving over the grass will die. So to protect that, you can use these protection mats. The protection mats have to be spread on this area where the grass is to be grown. The grass will grow through these holes. Then it can be trimmed to the level of the protection mat. The protection mat comes in different colors. If you opt for green color, what you will be seeing will be a green, beautiful car park with demarcation line with flowers. Okay. Such an arrangement, it can take the load of heavy vehicles, even that of a fire truck. So this is a good example which can be followed. Now, this is what is known as storm cells. This is what is known as storm cells. Storm cells are designed to provide 95% void cavity. 95% void cavity. Okay. So they are designed for pedestrian load, traffic load, and heavy traffic load. You can create a pond, a mini pond under your road. See, you can think about a mini pond under your road. So what happens? The surface water can be easily transmitted through catch basins or curb gullies towards this porous area. So because normally you will cover it with a geotextile membrane, so the sand will not come in. The water will get immediately percolated to the ground level. When you talk about water, the peak intensity of water will not last for a very long time. The peak intensity is normally considered to have a time gap of half an hour. Even that is an exaggeration. Normally, within 5 to 10 minutes time, the peak rain will stop. Then the small drizzling will continue. Then another peak rain. That is the way the monsoon performs. So as soon as the rainwater, the peak rainwater is accommodated within these cavities, what happens is there is enough time to percolate it to the adjacent ground. But your surface is free of water, even though under the road there is water. Under the road there is water. So if you cover this thing with waterproofing material, you can use it as a what do you say, as a water reservoir. Now I will show you a portion of the video in this one.
Water, one of our most precious natural resources. An asset to be conserved and reused wherever possible. Our world's water resources are limited, and our consumption of this precious resource is far exceeding its natural replenishment. Too much of our water is wasted, escaping via stormwater channels out to sea. Ozdrain recognises the need to better conserve and manage our water resources by developing systems that cost-effectively capture, store and reuse rainwater. Introducing the Ozdrain EnviroModule Rainwater Harvesting System. The Ozdrain EnviroModule Rainwater Harvesting Tank is a modular system comprised of Ozdrain EnviroModules that are placed on top of and beside one another to form a structural void in the ground. The tank is surrounded in a durable, reinforced waterproof liner. Ozdrain EnviroModules are tested to over 30 tonnes per square metre, made according to strict quality guidelines, are fast and easy to assemble, can be lifted and installed by hand, have a minimum 50-year life expectancy, and are manufactured from 100% recycled plastic, making the system very environmentally friendly. Ozdrain tanks are the cost-effective and flexible option to your underground water storage requirements. Each tank can be individually designed to the dimensions that best suit the available land space.
So that is the storm cells. Now, see the wastage from the domestic wastage, the degradable domestic waste, and degradable domestic waste and sludge from your sewage treatment plant can be treated in an anaerobic digester, produce methane gas. The methane gas can be used for power generation and also for cooking purposes. The digester waste is a good manure which can be used as a soil conditioner or for agricultural purposes. Okay, let me see. This is the next slide. What I showed you, what I am going to show you is an example which can be followed by all of us, because waste management is a very big issue now, and unless otherwise, each of us consider ourselves as responsible for the waste that we generate on a daily basis. How we effectively manage it. This is well explained in this particular video, and this video is a good example of managing waste at a micro level. Let us show that video to you.
Creating an awareness. I'm a one-man army, one-man evangelist. I've done my engineering from IIT Madras, mechanical engineering. I graduated in 1967. I should travel to Germany. So during my travel to Germany, I've seen lots of rooftop solar plants. That triggered my idea. A country without sunshine, if they can install rooftop solar plants, why can't we do it? From solar I got into biogas, from biogas I got into kitchen garden. So 1 kilowatt I installed in January 2012. it cost me about 2.5 lakhs. Today you can do it between 1.6 to 1.8 lakhs. We can do it. I upgraded by adding another 2 kilowatts, so totally 3 kilowatts. So this 2 kilowatts will cost me about 3.5 lakhs. Totally, I spent about 5 lakhs. This is the biogas plant. I put the kitchen waste. This is the funnel in which we put the kitchen waste. Automatically gas is generated. This is a floating drum where gas is stored. I put about 3 to 4 kg waste per day. Only organic items. It generates gas. Simultaneously, it generates a slurry, which is rich organic manure. I collected from my neighbors. I collected from 2 vegetable shops in my neighborhood. They are generating a lot of waste per day, and they are spending money to dispose of that. So it's a win-win-win situation. The basic objective of biogas is not producing gas, not producing manure. It is garbage management. Pebbles, charcoal, sand, 3 layers. So the water gets filtered. I collect it in a tank, pump it up and use it for cooking and drinking. On a heavy rainy day, excess water are connected to the well. Water goes into the well. Welcome to my terrace kitchen garden. Everything is grown organically. I told you about my biogas. I generate organic manure. I use that organic manure here for growing vegetables. And I've created a forest-like situation, atmosphere in my house. I planted the bamboo trees, put 2 creepers. There's a neem tree. It looks like a forest. I don't see the neighboring buildings. I tell everybody, I don't complain. There are enough things to complain. There are enough reasons you can find for not doing a thing. Do not expect the government to find the solutions for you. Assist the government in finding solutions.
So, waste from your toilet, waste from your cow shed, and domestic waste, everything can be treated in a biogas plant. It will produce biogas used for cooking purpose and for generating electricity. Similarly, domestic waste can be treated in an organic waste converter, and it can be developed to compost, which can be used for kitchen, garden, and landscaping. Having seen the management of domestic waste at a micro level, let us see how can we do at a macro level.
ക്രെഡായി ക്ലീൻ സിറ്റി മൂവ്മെന്റ്. നഗരത്തിലെ ഫ്ളാറ്റുകളിലെ മാലിന്യങ്ങൾ എങ്ങനെ സുരക്ഷിതമായും ഉപയോഗപ്രദമായും സംസ്കരിച്ചെടുക്കാം എന്നതാണ് ക്ലീൻ സിറ്റി മൂവ്മെന്റിന്റെ ലക്ഷ്യം. കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി സോഷ്യൽ റെസ്പോൺസിബിലിറ്റിയുടെ ഭാഗമായി 2007 ഈ പദ്ധതി ആരംഭിച്ചത്. 2008 സോളിഡ് വേസ്റ്റ് മാനേജ്മെന്റ് നിയമത്തിന്റെ ഭാഗമായാണ് ഈ പദ്ധതി കൊച്ചി നഗരത്തിൽ നടപ്പാക്കിയത്. മാലിന്യ നിർമ്മാർജ്ജനം നിയമമാക്കിയ അവസ്ഥയിൽ ബൾക്ക് ജനറേറ്റേഴ്സ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഹൈറൈസ് ബിൽഡിംഗ് എന്നറിയപ്പെടുന്ന ഫ്ളാറ്റുകളിലെയും അപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റുകളിലെയും മാലിന്യങ്ങളെ സുരക്ഷിതമായി സംസ്കരിച്ചെടുക്കുവാനുള്ള ഏറ്റവും ശാസ്ത്രീയവും പ്രകൃതിദത്തവുമായ പദ്ധതിയാണ് ക്രെഡായി അവലംബിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. 2 രീതിയിലുള്ള മാലിന്യങ്ങളാണ് പൊതുവെ പുറന്തള്ളപ്പെടുന്നത്: ജൈവാവശിഷ്ടങ്ങളും അജൈവാവശിഷ്ടങ്ങളും. ഇതിൽ ജൈവാവശിഷ്ടങ്ങളെ എയറോബിക് മൈക്രോബിയൽ കമ്പോസ്റ്റിംഗ് സിസ്റ്റം ഉപയോഗിച്ച് പൂർണ്ണമായും പ്രകൃതിദത്തമായ ജൈവവളം ഉൽപ്പാദിപ്പിക്കുന്നു. അജൈവാവശിഷ്ടങ്ങളെ ശാസ്ത്രീയമായി സംസ്കരിച്ച് പോളിമറൈസ്ഡ് റോഡ് ടാറിങ്ങിന് ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നു. എയറോബിക് മൈക്രോബിയൽ കമ്പോസ്റ്റിംഗ് സിസ്റ്റം ഓരോ വീടുകൾക്കും 2 നിറത്തിലുള്ള ബക്കറ്റുകൾ നൽകുന്നു. പച്ച നിറമുള്ള ബക്കറ്റിൽ ഭക്ഷണാവശിഷ്ടങ്ങൾ, പച്ചക്കറി വേസ്റ്റുകൾ എന്നിവ നിക്ഷേപിക്കുന്നു. ക്രെഡായി ക്ലീൻ സിറ്റി മൂവ്മെന്റിന്റെ ഭാഗമായി ജോലി ലഭിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന വനിതകൾ ഈ മാലിന്യങ്ങൾ ശേഖരിക്കുന്നു. വീടുകളിൽ നിന്നും ശേഖരിക്കുന്ന ജൈവ മാലിന്യങ്ങളെ ടെറസിൽ സ്ഥാപിച്ചിരിക്കുന്ന ബയോബിന്നിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോകുന്നു. അപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റുകളുടെ മുകളിൽ ബയോബിൻ സ്ഥാപിക്കുവാൻ വെറും 120 സ്ക്വയർ മീറ്റർ സ്ഥലം മതിയാകും. ജൈവ മാലിന്യങ്ങൾ വിഘടിപ്പിക്കുവാൻ ആവശ്യമായ പ്രക്രിയ നടക്കുവാനായി കുറച്ച് ജൈവവളം ബയോബിന്നിൽ നേരത്തെ നിക്ഷേപിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടായിരിക്കും. ബയോബിന്നിലേക്ക് നിക്ഷേപിക്കുന്ന ജൈവ മാലിന്യങ്ങളിലേക്ക് ബയോകൾച്ചർ മിശ്രിതം തളിക്കുന്നു. അതിനുശേഷം പുതിയതായി നിക്ഷേപിച്ച മാലിന്യങ്ങൾ ബയോബിന്നിലുള്ള ജൈവവളം ഉപയോഗിച്ച് മൂടുന്നു. ബയോബിന്നിലെ വിഘടന പ്രക്രിയയിലൂടെ ജൈവ മാലിന്യങ്ങൾ ജൈവവളമാകുവാൻ ആരംഭിക്കുന്നു. പൂർണ്ണമായും ജൈവവളമായി മാറുവാൻ വേണ്ട സമയം 15 മുതൽ 20 ദിവസം വരെയാണ്. ബയോബിന്നിൽ നിന്നും ശേഖരിക്കുന്ന ജൈവവളം അരിച്ചെടുത്തതിനു ശേഷം പാക്ക് ചെയ്ത് വിൽപ്പനയ്ക്കും കൃഷി ആവശ്യങ്ങൾക്കുമായി ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നു. ഈ ജൈവവളം ഉപയോഗിച്ച് അപ്പാർട്ട്മെന്റുകളിൽ 100% പ്രകൃതിദത്തമായ പച്ചക്കറി വിഭവങ്ങളും മനോഹരമായ പൂന്തോട്ടങ്ങളും നിർമ്മിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. ഗവൺമെന്റിന്റെ ഭാഗത്തു നിന്നും ഉപഭോക്താക്കളിൽ നിന്നുമുള്ള നിസ്സീമമായ സഹകരണവും പരിശീലന പരിപാടികളും ഈ പദ്ധതിയെ ഒരു വൻ വിജയമാക്കുന്നു. റീസൈക്ലിംഗ് ഓഫ് നോൺ ബയോഡിഗ്രേഡബിൾ വേസ്റ്റ്. ഉപയോഗശൂന്യമായ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് വേസ്റ്റുകൾ കഴുകി വൃത്തിയാക്കി മഞ്ഞ ബക്കറ്റിൽ നിക്ഷേപിക്കുന്നു. ഈ വേസ്റ്റുകൾ ശേഖരിച്ച് ഷ്രെഡിംഗ് യൂണിറ്റിലേക്ക് കൊണ്ടുപോകുന്നു. ഷ്രെഡിംഗ് യൂണിറ്റിലെ ഷ്രെഡിംഗ് മെഷീനിലിട്ട് ഈ പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക് വേസ്റ്റുകളെ ചെറുതരികളാക്കി മാറ്റുന്നു. ചെറുതരികളെ ചാക്കുകളിലാക്കി ശേഖരിക്കുന്നു. പിന്നീട് അത് ആവശ്യാനുസരണം എടുത്ത് 170 ഡിഗ്രി സെൽഷ്യസിൽ ചൂടാക്കി പോളിമറൈസ്ഡ് റോഡ് ടാറിങ്ങിനായി ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നു.
ഈ പ്രോജക്റ്റ് കൊച്ചി കോർപ്പറേഷന്റെ പ്രോജക്റ്റ് ആണ്. അത് ക്രെഡായുമായി ചേർന്നുകൊണ്ട് ഒരു പബ്ലിക് പ്രൈവറ്റ് പാർട്ടിസിപ്പേഷൻ എന്ന രീതിയിലാണ് ഇപ്പൊ ഈ പ്രോജക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്.
കൂടുതൽ റോഡുകളിലേക്ക് ഈ സാങ്കേതിക വിദ്യ ഉപയോഗിക്കാനും പ്ലാസ്റ്റിക്കിന്റെ ദുരുപയോഗം തടയാനും സാധിക്കും.
So that is so basically what we are trying to achieve is the basic principle of sustainability works on reduced demand, efficiency and recovery. And this completes my presentation. Save energy for future generation. Thank you. Seed Engineering Consultants. Now it is time for question and answers. Actually, my contact details are given here in the sheet. If you want to have more discussion, you can write to me. I will answer you. And if you have any questions to ask now, I am available for discussion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for taking us through the world of sustainable, energy efficient and economical design, and give us an insight into how and where it can be used. Also, how to orient our buildings to use the sun to our own advantage, and the need or importance of interdisciplinary collaboration for a sustainable and economical future. I hope all the participants have enjoyed the talk and benefited a lot. Now the forum is open for question answering session. Participants can unmute and ask, or may type their queries in the chat box. Sir, there are a few questions in the chat box. May I read it?
Yeah, please.
So, which type of trees will we select?
Oh, that I cannot give you an answer. That you have to discuss with the botany. The botany discipline can advise you. Basically, we should go for plants which will give you maximum oxygen. ഞാൻ മനസ്സിലാക്കുന്നത് ആൽമരം ധാരാളം ഓക്സിജൻ തരുന്ന ഒരു മരമാണെന്ന് ഞാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്. പക്ഷെ ആൽമരം ഒരു ബിൽഡിങ്ങിന്റെ മുകളിൽ കൊണ്ടുവന്ന് ഇൻസ്റ്റാൾ ചെയ്യുന്ന ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടായിരിക്കും. So there may be another type of plants which can absorb carbon dioxide more and give out oxygen. ഈ ബോട്ടണി ഡിസിപ്ലിനിൽ ആളുമായിട്ട് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്ത് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ they will be in a position to advise you more. I have no much idea regarding the plants.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now there are a few questions on the air conditioning. That is, what is the best temperature for air conditioning? Is it better to keep AC at one temperature? And also, what are the advantages of centralized air conditioning system?
See, when you go for a centralized, normally you go for a centralized air conditioning system if the building is very big, okay, because you can take the advantage of diversity. And when you go for and if you are going for a centralized system, it is better that you go for a chilled water system, because in a chilled water system, you don't need ducts, HVAC ducts. You are actually bringing in chilled water to each and every room which is going to be air conditioned, and in that particular place, you are going to have a fan coil unit. Through the fan coil unit, you circulate chilled water. The advantage is that you avoid heavy ductwork, because normally with heavy ductwork have to be run above the false ceiling, and the false ceiling available, the ceiling cavity available to run these ducts will be very much limited, because all the services, all the MEP services are to be either concealed within the wall or run above the false ceiling. So the volume to be accommodated within the ceiling void has to be minimized. So if you are going for a chilled water system, you need only run the chilled water pipes. Of course, then there is a question of fresh air. Fresh air, you will have rooftop fresh air unit, and that has to be transmitted into each location through the ducts. But when you compare the amount of air which is used for fresh air requirement, for upgrading the indoor air quality, the volume being small, your ductwork will be smaller. But if the entire air is to be recirculated, including the recirculated air, your volume will be high. So that is for very large building, you should go for a chiller system. Hello? Or can I
continue? No, sir. No, sir. Please continue.
Okay. You can go for a chiller system. It can be either an air-cooled chiller or a water-cooled chiller, depending upon the availability of water in that particular locality. For a moderately large building, I will recommend VRF or VRV system, where instead of chilled water, you are actually circulating the refrigerant gas itself. For still smaller solution, you can go for a split unit, where one outdoor unit caters to the requirements of more indoor unit. If it is one room or two room, you can go for simple split unit. The cheapest is window ACs, but the problem is it gives you the noise problems. It creates a lot of sound, because in an air conditioned atmosphere, we need quietness. You won't get quietness if you are going for a window AC.
Thank you, sir. Now, can project works given to students for savings in energy, water resources in college campuses, municipality, etc., were the guidelines related available in KMBR?
KMBR is giving some broader guidelines regarding what is to be, what are the requirements to be done, either KMBR or National Building Code of India. National Building Code of India also gives you what are the parameters to be followed within India. So your students should actually go for it. That is my concern, because instead of my suggestion is you should go for a building as a whole, and it should be distributed between the various disciplines, the civil, the mechanical, the structural, the air conditioning. etc., etc. So all of them will be working on the same project so that they will get the feeling of how to work together. And they will also understand what are the difficulties of other disciplines. So there should be an interdisciplinary interaction at the college level itself. Because if everybody is a watertight compartment, just concentrating on his aspect, it will not work that way in the actual industry. So in actual industry, everybody should know what are the requirements of other disciplines. So if the colleges goes for a concept of that type, Seed Engineering Academy will be always happy to provide the necessary support.
Thank you, sir. Now, is there any building in Kerala where geothermal energy system is applied?
See, I don't remember. I don't think that geothermal. I can give you to see at the end of my. Let me show you. See, these are some of the buildings which have come to my attention. So geothermal air conditioning. See, Apollo Cancer Hospital at Hyderabad. Say it is a project of 200-ton refrigeration. The energy saving is 43.6%. Indian School of Business opened a new campus at Chandigarh, a 700-acre development. The financial saving on power is rupees 87.16 lakhs annually. Similarly, if you see Four Seasons Hotel in Bombay, they are expecting a saving rupees 10 and 15 lakhs monthly in electricity bills. There will be several buildings like that in India, but to my knowledge, it is not there in Kerala. To my knowledge, I'm not conversant with that. Because normally, if you see, it is the investor should be ready to spend money on this new concept. Because as consultants, we can recommend it, but we cannot force it, because always it is guided, always it is decided by the owner of the project who is spending the money. So because initially you will be required to spend some money more, which he will be recouping in years, and once it is recouped, thereafter it is an everyday saving for him.
So thank you. So one more question, can you discuss on the zero energy building concept?
The zero energy building, because all the energy, see, what I was explaining to you is, in fact, energy, what is being, see, now when I told you about the air conditioning system, I told you that the heat removed from the building can be used for generating hot water. Like that, instead of throwing it out, everything is to be used within that facility itself. But a fully zero energy building, I have not come across with. To some extent, it is minimized because we work in lead projects, so we try to minimize the energy consumption. But we have never come to a zero level. How can we come to a zero level? Because energy has to be spent. Because these are all concepts in mind of various people, but the industry has not developed to that particular level.
Thank you, sir. The final question is, what is the most effective way to enhance people awareness towards energy consumption in their building?
See, when people awareness, we can do it only through seminars and meetings like that to the public. Okay, because the message has to come to them. And another way is government should make it compulsory. Just to give you an example, in earlier days, when my younger days, in my house and all, we were not allowed to have the lights in the morning, because if we don't switch it off, our parents or grandparents will come and switch it off. And there were no this much number of fans now. hardly there could be one fan in the drawing room and one bedroom, one in the master bedroom. Now what is happening? Every room has got a fan. Every light is always on. Nobody is bothered to switch off the fans and the lights. Okay, because the purchasing power of the common people have increased. We don't mind wasting a little money by wasting electricity. But when we look at nationally, it is an enormous loss of power generated. So for extra, one thing what we can do is we can think of automation. If you provide sensors in your buildings, the switching on and switching off of unwanted electric power will be automatically taken care of by the sensors. So by employing that thing, you can automatically generate it. Another way is making it compulsory. If an end user feels that he has to pay heavily after a particular level of power consumption, and it should be above his purchasing capacity, then he will automatically control all these things. And to a great extent, all these factors, what we discuss, have to be implemented as a law in the country. It's a slow process. One day you cannot do it, because when it has to be spread among the public, it should be a very low, we have to operate at a very low profile, and we should get full cooperation from the politicians. Without the support of the politicians, we will not be in a position to achieve anything.
Thank you so much, sir. So there is one more question, may I ask?
Please ask.
Can you discuss about the system adopted in Lotus Temple, Delhi?
Pardon, which one?
Lotus Temple in Delhi. What is the system adopted in Lotus Temple?
I have no idea about it.
Okay, sir. Then one more question. We can introduce small type of, that is K. Rajkumar sir has given some suggestion. We can introduce small type of residential building, sir. In the chat box, he has suggested it.
All type of residential buildings, because if you want to, when you are talking, that is it. Instead of going for a larger building, you can go for a smaller building. As in the case of, because in Dubai and all you have apartments, very small apartments, but it goes to the end user. If he wants a larger apartments, it becomes difficult. So when the size of the building goes up, if the size of your room goes up, or your apartment goes up, you should be heavily taxed. Then the people will automatically go for it. Now everybody has got a fancy to go for a larger building. Your building need be only up to the size what you need, because a larger building will be okay during your initial stage, but during the old age, when you are retired and when your income goes down and your health also goes down in maintaining the building, it will be a burden more than a luxury. So his suggestion is
okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your information. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, can you please stop sharing the screen?
Yeah, right. I'll do that.
So any more questions, dear participants? Once again, I would like to remind all the participants to fill the feedback form, which is available in chat box. Sir, I hope there is no more questions.
Okay, thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to state the fact one more time that Seed Engineering Academy is always happy to interact with your students.
Definitely,
so if they are having some project works, they can seek our support. We will be happy to provide them the required advices.
Thank you, sir.
From a practical point of view.
Thank you, sir. Also, thank you, dear participants, for such an interactive session. Now, I would like to invite Rinku John, Assistant Professor of Albert Institute of Science and Technology, Cochin, to give a feedback on the session.
Ma'am, am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Good afternoon, all. I express my sincere thanks to Engineer Shankar and Menon, Director Seed Cochin, for the wonderful session on the importance of sustainability in modern building industry. Sir, the session was very informative and interesting, especially the proper orientation techniques and the quality construction materials which is to be implicated in the design, and also the presentations and explanations for the energy efficient design were really realistic and informative. It is indeed an enlightenment session for all of us. I'm sure that all the participants are extremely benefited from the session. Once again, thank you, sir, for your time and effort. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all the participants, and thank you, Shankar sir. We'll have a break for lunch, and I request all the participants to join the same link for the afternoon session sharp at 2 p.m. Okay. Also, please fill the feedback form for this session. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Shankar sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.